My Hero Academia chapter 325. Today we talk about the importance of the final panel. All Might returns to UA but turned his back and left with a sad face. We explain how this might have to do with the fact that he met Hero Killer Stain a few chapters ago and why the two may be planning to confront All for One. Boku no Hero Academia chapter 325. Also, only a small percentage of the people who watch our videos are actually subscribed. So if you end up liking this video, consider subscribing. Please enjoy this video, let's go! The new My Hero Academia chapter 325 starts exactly where the last chapter left off. But I know you all want to see the part about All Might. So let's just start with the main topic of this video. When we are done with All Might, we will then immediately move on to the actual chapter review. So let's get started. At the end of this chapter we see All Might with what I would interpret as a sad face. This scene definitely looks worrying. I think this could possibly be the start of a great tragedy that neither of us is ready for. Since the day Sir Knight I saw the death of All Might, we have all suspected that All Might might actually die one day. The fact that All Might returned to UA but did not enter the shelter and immediately turned around with a sad face could actually indicate that he never intended to enter the shelter, but that this was a kind of farewell in which he wanted to return to the place where his journey as a hero began. We all know All Might. He spent his whole life trying to become the greatest hero of all time. He was literally the symbol of peace who was able to make everyone's worries go away with just a single smile. When he showed up, everyone knew that everything will be fine. People looked up to him and wanted to be like him. He had the greatest power and was the #1 hero. But now, after he had passed on his quirk, the #1 hero All Might became the quirkless Toshinori Yagi again. That All Might lost his power is much more painful for him than he openly shows. Although he is unable to use One for All, we have seen him train every day, even successfully trying to fight low villains, while trying to support Deku as much as possible. And what did Deku do to thank All Might for it? He left him alone instead of helping him with his inner conflict and respecting him as the greatest hero of all time. The last thing All Might wanted is to be treated like he was useless, but unfortunately Deku achieved just that. Of course, Deku just wanted to protect him, but we all saw what this did to All Might. Deku turned his back on him and literally left him alone. If even his successor and student doesn't believe in him, how could anyone else? All Might feels useless, and all of the civilians who admired him so much have suddenly forgotten about him. For the heroes he seems just an obstacle, and even All for One makes it seem as if he's no longer interested in All Might. What was once One for All is now just all alone. But we know that one person hasn't forgotten All Might, the hero killer Stain. We actually saw Stain observe the whole scene with Deku and All Might. For hero killer Stain, seeing All Might in such a sad state must be very difficult, as Stain could be an even bigger fan of All Might than Deku. For Stain, All Might is literally the only hero, so if he sees All Might like that, you can be sure that he faced All Might shortly after Deku left. We can assume that whatever Stain discussed with All Might might have to do with his short return to UA. We know that both Hero Killer Stain and All Might are two very ruthless characters, but by that I don't mean ruthless towards other people, but towards themselves. Both seem to have no problem dying for something they believe in. I think Stain doesn't like the idea that the last thing people would remember about All Might is an old skinny man who suddenly just became useless when the world needed him most. So I can imagine that his conversation with All Might had something to do with a plan for how both of them could fight All for One. If All Might confronts All for One will literally just laugh at him and maybe not even bother attacking him. And this could be the perfect strategy for Stain to surprise All for One with his very strong quirk, and with it get a blood sample from him. All Stain has to do is take a little blood and All for One will be paralyzed, so that in theory he could easily be defeated. Unless All for One has a quirk to get rid of this paralysis. All Might is literally the perfect bait for this strategy. But here we shouldn't forget the future Sir Knight saw, in which All Might will die if he wouldn't stop confronting All for One. Although we know that the future can be changed, it does not automatically apply to every future that Sir Knight has seen. Perhaps this prediction will actually come true and All Might now is on his way to his final fight as the greatest hero of all time. I believe that if All Might died fighting All for One, at least he would have died as a hero and not as an old useless man. What do you think where All Might is going, and do you think he could really try to fight All for One with the help of the hero killer abstain? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Before my partner Yami continues with the My Hero Academia chapter 325, please take a short moment to like this video. It really helps us a lot. Thank you.
We see Kota tell Deku how much he inspired him, especially when he saw the giant woman talk about how Deku was protecting her. It is pretty obvious that one day Kota wants to be a hero too, and he's taken Deku as a role model. I'm loving to see that Deku already has this small fan base. He is really slowly becoming a true hero, not just in terms of strength, but with everything that comes with it. Kota tells Deku that everything will be fine so that they can stop crying. Deku really took so much on his shoulders that it is understandable that he has to let it all out now. The giant woman says that many shelters rejected her because of her quirk. In fact, we saw something similar a few chapters ago. When the giant woman was first introduced, she was literally attacked on the street by total strangers while crying as she begged to be left alone. She was just afraid, but the people who attacked her ignored her words and continued attacking her, and all because of her looks. This is so pathetic and actually has a very deep meaning when you reflect this in our own societies. This scene literally represents racist stereotypes which discriminate people based on their appearances. The civilians are slowly beginning to understand that Deku is just a 16-year-old kid trying to save the world. I mean, how stupid can they be knowing that Deku is literally the only hope for a better world? But they don't let him take rest for a day. They put their temporary security above the outcome of the entire war. This is so ridiculous, but I see how this could actually be human nature. And then that old man from the very first chapter begins to explain exactly what we explained in our previous reviews. Civilians have to stop being mere spectators and pretending that heroes have no heart, but see them for what they truly are. Just normal people like everyone else. The civilians must respect and appreciate the heroes who, despite the difficult situations with all the villains and the bad reputation of the heroes, are still here ready to protect everyone. The old man ended his speech with how long we want to remain mere spectators. We then get the insight why all of these civilians are so afraid of Deku, which is directly related to the whole situation in general. And it's not really only directly against Izuku, since the same thing happened to the giant woman. People no longer know who to trust, because that's exactly what All For One has planned all along. Civilians say that some people claim that Deku is a henchman for All For One, but others call him the hero's greatest weapon. All of this is very confusing and people have trouble believing what is true and what is a lie. Deku assures that after he has rested, he will continue the fight for a better future together with everyone else. Let's hope nothing will happen while Deku is resting in UA, as this would ruin the trust the civilians starting to build again. Then we see Endeavor, Hawks and Shoto outside of UA. Endeavor blames himself, saying that he simply made Deku wander around without any progress. However, Hawks interrupts him and says that the progress is right in front of their eyes. And I think Hawks is right. Due to the fact that Deku left UA, a lot has changed. This has led to a greater character development for many different characters and ultimately reconnecting a large part of the society with the heroes. Shoto then reminds Endeavor that they must stop Toya together, and Endeavor agrees. The fact that this has been mentioned could mean that we'll soon see the final battle between the Todoroki family, and I honestly can't wait to see this fight. And then we see Nezu talking to Aizawa on the phone and ask him how his leg is doing. Aizawa replies that he has not yet got used to it, and then we see a panel of his prosthetics. We find out that Kurogiri has not escaped from prison with all other villains, but is still being held in the central hospital, where the doctors are trying to get him to speak, but so far with no progress, which makes total sense since they can't get Shirakomu to take control of his body just like that. The soul of Shirakomu, who is deeply asleep in Kurogiri, needs a very strong emotional influence so that Shirakomu can manage to wake up again and then try to be in control longer than he did the last time. The fact that Kurogiri was mentioned once again talking about progress is a pretty clear sign that Shirakomu will eventually return in some way, either by mixing with Kurogiri or learning planning to control his new Nomu body. We got to know that the heroes have made special preparations to ensure that Toga cannot sneak into the UA, and thus allow an opening for the villains. They have discovered her maximum transformation time, and as a countermeasure, forcing all refugees to go through a period of isolation before they can enter the UA. Toga is probably not needed anyway, if we consider that the UA traitor must be slowly revealed, since we are already in the final act of My Hero Academia. With that, the best way the villains can get into the UA shelter is through the traitor, who then has to be revealed in this arc. And I can't say enough, people still believe that Horikoshi said that he forgot about the traitor. Horikoshi never said anything like that, because that's just a rumor. That's it for today, folks. Hope you guys enjoyed our review. If you like this video, make sure you smash the like button, and if you're new to our channel, make sure you subscribe with the notification bell turned on. See you guys in the next video. Yami out.